Andy B is an artist. That's not just a statement. That's the handle on Instagram and on Twitter that you should be following. And it is also a very interesting baseball journey. Andy Brown joins me today to talk about how he has painted the stadiums of the baseball world. And take it away. Let the people know how you got involved and a little bit about your art.
So, well, I mean, it's a long story, kind of, but I'll try and break it down a bit simply. So, my name's Andy Brown. I'm English. I lived in Korea, South Korea, for 10 years, and in Korea, baseball's massive. It's really, really big. So, in 2009, I went to my first game in Busan, the city I was living at the time, to see the Giants, Los Angeles Giants. And it was kind of my introduction to a new sport, a new game that I'd never experienced before, never seen before. And that was just kind of the start of it. It was just like one little thing where I went along with some friends, never been to a ballpark, and I just got to experience something completely different, a game that I'd heard about, a great game that I'd seen, little bits of maybe on TV or in films and all that sort of thing. And of course, I'd always associated with America. I guess that's, the home of the national pastime. And from there, I just started little bit by little bit getting more and more into it. I got, there was little moments where I feel like you just see parts of the game, you understand new rules, and just started to get more and more hooked by it. And then I realized that, of course, there's all the different uniforms, all the different ballparks, all the different cities within the country to visit. So I started visiting the different ballparks, and I'll be sketching and drawing the ballparks while I'll be watching the game or before the game. Because again, it's one of the beautiful things about baseball is the fact that all the ballparks are different. They're all different sizes, of course, all different atmospheres, different songs being sung, different ways of celebrating. So I started documenting the culture of Korean baseball in the KBO. And again, I think as happens with baseball, you can have one little seed of an idea, or you get one little glimpse into an aspect that might capture your imagination, and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And you realize, I realized then, right, there's the Koshien in Japan. I want to go there and I want to see what that's like. I want to go and see those uniforms. I want to start collecting the Japanese baseball cards. I want to look at the logos, the graphics, see the flags that the fans are waving. So then I started touring around Japan, Taiwan, China, and just the local countries to again start recording in paints their ballparks, their fans, their players, and the geographical features surrounding them. So I started doing that, and then that was quite a few years ago now. And then now I found myself, or in the last few years, I left Korea where I was working at the time, and I started traveling. I traveled around the States, painting all of the 30 major league ballparks. I painted independent ball teams, minor league ball teams, and then I ended up 2019. I ended up in Mexico painting the winter ball down there, and then got over to Cuba while I was in Mexico to see what Cuban ball was all about, and it was something else. So that's kind of what I do, or part of it in a few moments.
Oh, that's excellent. And I mean, I see some parallels in terms of, see as you say, an Englishman that gets interested in foreign baseball initially, as you said, kind of in the Far East, and a Canadian who's interested in Cuban baseball. So a lot of what you say about baseball cultures is very interesting, and obviously we'll get into a little bit more of that and maybe compare and contrast some of that specifically. So you mentioned that, and we can see behind you, you're in your artist workshop there. So you mentioned that you like to draw and you like to paint a lot of the stadiums. Kind of walk us through how you define your style and maybe how that began.
I am a figurative painter, I guess you'd say. I'm not an abstract painter, but I'd say I've got, if you're looking at art history, I would put myself down as being somewhere in between the Impressionists and the Expressionists. So kind of the turn of the 1900s. I paint plein air, so I like to paint plein air. I like to paint at the ballpark, at the stadium. I want to feed off the energy of the crowd, off the game, the noise, the atmosphere, and those are the things that I want to capture in the paint. So I'm trying to listen to the crowd, see the music in a color. I want to feel the movement of the crowd in a brushstroke. I want to capture the gameplay and the action in the strokes. So it's kind of molding together kind of two different kind of artistic art movements and making it my own, I guess. And it's a subject matter that I don't think many people have really tackled firsthand in the ballpark doing it this way. But of course, there's a huge amount of visual arts and design and that approach to baseball is so key to the actual sport itself, I think.
And so you bring up something very interesting there in terms of your approach, and so that I found interesting that because how we had first connected, you'd reached out in advance of your trip to Cuba and kind of we're looking for some advice just in terms of how to manipulate getting in and out of the stadium, but specifically where might be some good places to kind of set up so that you can work. I've followed since and seen that through your social media, you've even recorded some of your work, and it's very interesting to see you immersed with the fans in the middle of the game, actually painting the scene as it occurs. How did you arrive at that approach?
It's just what I always did, and that's it's just what I do. You know, it's my inspiration. I find my inspiration is outside. You know, it's in the world, and it's capturing the things around me. And I was finding at the time, you know, when I first went to watch baseball in Korea, I would always have a sketchbook with me. So I'd be in the ballpark a couple hours early. I'd make a little sketch of the game, and it was just kind of like you start noticing things. To me, like drawing and painting is the way I understand the world and the way I observe the world, and I see new things and I learn new things. So it'd just be noticing, okay, the architecture in the apartments behind this ballpark in Mokdong in Seoul, and then you might be in a domed ballpark in Tokyo, and you know it makes you think about the weather and the geological, the systems there. So it was just a way of understanding things. So it was just always like I'd be doing these. It started with small sketches, and just almost not doodles as such, but small sketches, and then they just got more developed, and I wanted to understand it more. So then it started that they might be paintings. So then I started taking paints, and there would be maybe, I guess you'd say 12 inches by 8 inches, like an A4 kind of size. And then they just got a bit bigger to maybe an A3 sort of size. And these were, to begin with, they were on paper. And then as I got more and more into it, and as I got more and more serious about it, and I really wanted to make something more of it, then I was using acrylics. But then I moved to using oil paints. Of course, oils are very messy. They get they stay wet for a couple of days. So you have kind of problems there. So then I'd be using an easel. So I'd be taking an easel to the ballpark. I need a bit more space to set up. But it was all about just adapting to where I was. So, Cuba was incredible for that because you've got to adapt a lot. But, I've been in ballparks in Taiwan where I'm painting from the steps of the concourse or whatever, or you might be in a press box somewhere, or you might be, I've been on top of the roof in Mexico in one ballpark. You never know quite where you're going to be able to set up or where there might be a space and where you're allowed to go. So sometimes it's that, I guess as my reputation's grown or my work's developed, I've had relationships with teams where they can give me a spot and they can help me out like that. But sometimes, like as in Cuba, when I first reached out to you, I really didn't have any idea of what to expect and what I could do. And then when I got there, it was the playoffs and it was just bonkers. It was crazy. So you couldn't, taking an easel that I did have in my bag into the ballpark was definitely not an option for those games. But it was still, you've got to make it work. So you got to adapt, and I did what I could.
Perfect. So, and to pivot to your inspiration for heading to Cuba and sort of what you did discover when you first arrived.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to go to Cuba because you hear a lot about it. Now I've painted in 9 different countries, ballparks in 9 different countries. Asia, the MLB, UK in London. I've painted one of the local teams here in the UK. Of course, the Blue Jays in Canada. Painted all around the States, different ballparks, major league, minor league, independent. And as I say, I was in Mexico, and you hear a lot about Cuban baseball. You hear a lot about, of course, Cuban ball players are huge. And again, as I've seen different things, like I was in, when I was living in Seoul, there was the World Baseball and Softball Classic in 2017. And there was a warm-up game. Cuba were playing, I can't can't remember who they were playing. I want to say it was Korea, but I'm not even sure. But there was a warm-up match before the actual tournament started. The team were playing in Seoul for 1 or 2 games, and then I think they were over in Tokyo for the group over there. And anyway, so you see the Cuban players, and you can just tell. I mean, every culture plays baseball slightly differently. Every culture certainly celebrates baseball differently. I remember being there at that tournament, and the Taiwanese fans, they've got different musical instruments which give a completely different atmosphere to the ballpark. And that to me is just that little thing where you get an insight of, wow, that's just different. And from that, I want to see more. It's just like, okay, right, I want to understand that more. I want to know more about that. So with Cuba, I'd never been to Cuba as a country. The history of Cuba is, I'd say, relatively well known, or there's certainly aspects of it that are well known, I think, to us living in the countries we probably live in. We know certain bits from the news that we're given about it. And I just wanted to see it for myself. What is it really like as a country? And what's the ball like? What is baseball like in Cuba? And that was really my initial kind of, right, I want to go and see it. So that was, I got on a plane and went to Havana. It was good.
Excellent. So as you mentioned, you got lucky. This was last year, 2020. Lucky twofold before the world kind of shifted to where we see right now, but also that your timing was during the playoffs. And as far as I know, you got to a few different stadiums. Maybe walk us through the cities and the stadiums that you actually did get to games at.
Yeah, so I started in Havana, and I was there for 2 games. One of the games got rained off, but it was the semi-finals against Camagüey, the Toros. So I was there in the Latino Americano I went to the second game as well, but we're all sat there for about an hour or so, and then it was kind of like called off, and that was that. So I was in Latino Americano for a couple of games. Then I went down to Camagüey to see the Toros, and they were playing the rest of the semi-finals against Industriales. And then Las Tunas was kind of, they were in the other semi-final, but I couldn't get to them because of just I guess it wasn't that far, but with the transport system, getting a bus ticket and so on and so forth, it wasn't. I thought for the journey and all the rest of it, it was worth just staying put. And then I was in Camagüey for a good week or so, and then I went up to Matanzas to see the finals. The Crocodillos were down in Camagüey for, the first few games, and it was back up to Matanzas on the train to see the conclusion of the playoffs, or of the finals, as it were. And it was very special, incredible. Incredible stadiums, incredible ballparks, different to any that I've experienced before. But that's often the way, and I think that's the beautiful thing about sport and sport culture and baseball.
How did you find the response to you was in the stadiums, especially last year during the finals? There was a big resurgence. Cuba has seen some strains on the baseball fan, and in ways it's been harder for them to see it, but they also have proven that when you put a good product on the field, they will be there. As I'm sure you can attest with the lineups to get into the stadiums for the finals and the excitement that was brewing there. But how did you find that people kind of received an Englishman painting their stadium in the middle of a game? Were people intrigued by that and helpful, or?
Oh yeah, incredible! Incredible. I everywhere I've painted, generally, without a doubt, the fans are great. People are very pleasant, very, very hospitable. But I've got to say, the Cubans were just incredibly warm, so welcoming, so warm, generous. It's that sort of thing that, all of a sudden you turn around and somebody had brought me, one of those little paper wraps of nuts or whatever, and somebody's passing it over to you, and you're like, wow, well, thanks very much. And it's just so kind, so generous. Very inquisitive as to what I was doing, where I was from, but also respectful. It's really nice. It takes, you've got to try and concentrate to do these paintings. It's not necessarily, you really have to look, you really have to be focused. And there's all this noise and craziness going on around you. But everybody was kind of very aware of, I'm just doing my thing, they're enjoying their thing. So I found it fantastic, and I thought just the interaction with the fans was so good. It was, and you know, I remember there was some guy came over. He'd made like one of those big cardboard signs, and it had what did it say on it? Oh, fricassee de Lion or something like this. You know, it was basically
fried a lion, basically.
Fried a lion, yeah. And he came over with the sign, and he hadn't coloured in a part. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he hadn't filled in like the fricassee or something. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, okay, right. He was like, oh, so we worked out that he wanted me to paint in the thing. So you do a bit of that, and everyone's cheering and whatever else, and it was just, very special. I mean, incredible, really incredible. And I had my Polaroid camera with me. I used to take my Polaroid camera with me all around the States and take photos of different things which make a kind of unusual, different sort of snapshot. But again, you give one of those to somebody and whatever else, and it was really nice. It was just really, everyone was very kind, very helpful, and they just enjoyed it. They could see that I was there because I wanted to understand. I think as an artist, I think it'd be hard to come with wrong intentions, but I'm trying to go there because I want to learn and I want to understand them. I'm not trying to get in the way. I'm certainly not trying to be the focus of the attention. Like, I'm trying to observe, I guess. You're trying to look from the outside in, and people just let me get on with that. And they were very, very kind, very supportive. I couldn't have asked for more. It was brilliant.
It definitely mirrors what I think I've discovered over the years, and not to say this because as I dig deeper into the get into the wormhole a little bit more, I see that there's kind of a cottage industry, especially of travel videos about Cuba. There's some good information in there, but there's a recurring trend that people like to say scams, whereas I look at it as there's a hustle. But most of the time, like you say, if you approach it, if you're there for a reason, or you're there to connect with them based on that culture, most of the time people, they might bother you at first, but when you let them know, oh, I'm here doing this, but also that you're there to respect the baseball, they'll kind of approach you. And even if your Spanish is broken or whatnot, that you can talk of that language of baseball, definitely opens it up, and that you see the people are incredibly welcoming. And I mean, I'm a testament to that, of the number of people that have been very open and responsive, and as the internet's opened up, and especially on the island and during my time there. So one cool story that I'd like to highlight while you were there, because you'd taken my suggestion of a couple spots to see in Havana, but you got the chance to meet up with a gentleman who's a friend of mine, is Freddie Cesar Romero, who is a retired pitcher, but you put together a nice portrait, and maybe talk a little bit about that experience, but also maybe some of the other things that you do typically paint when you're on one of these trips. Sure.
Well, yeah, meeting Freddie was fantastic. I mean, it was on your recommendation. You said, oh, go to this park. And it was, it was kind of a strange one, because I think it was my last couple of days in Havana. And of course, got to the park, and sure enough, there was 3 guys. I'd seen the interview you've done with him, and I thought, I'm pretty sure that's him. I was like, what do? You just go up and, hi, like, I'm a painter. Like, what am I going to say to this guy? So, but you do. All right, how you doing? A little bit. I mean, my Spanish is very, very poor, but a little bit I could say. I could introduce myself, say what I was doing, just say hello, and then thankfully, they spoke better English than I speak Spanish. So then you can converse a little bit. And I said, look, would you mind if I do a painting of you guys? And they were very happy just to sit there. And you see, when I was in Cuba, like I was saying before, the easel that I'd taken was just, there was no point really taking it in the end. So what I did was, it was just rolls of canvas. So I just rolled out canvas on the floor and then started painting them. And again, it was very interesting. It was really nice to meet them, talk to them, just hear a little bit about their stories, about their passions, about baseball, about Havana, what their lives had been like. It was, very, very rewarding like that. And it was the same like, I was in Plaza de Revolution at the start of the break when I first got to Havana, and I was going up to the Jose Marti monument up there, and the famous Che Guevara depiction on the side of the building there, the ministry. And I could see over in the corner over here, I could see a baseball game happening. And I thought, oh wow, I think they're playing baseball. So I had a look, and then so I thought, oh, I'll just walk around and see what's going on around here. And as I walk around, then these guys see me, and then they come over and I kind of explain what I'm doing, and then they call me over. Hey, come over, come and paint, come and be with us. So then I'm in the dugout with these guys. They play for the Plaza de Revolution municipal team, the local team.
Yeah.
And they were great. They just, I sat there. I've got this little canvas, so I did this one here. I don't know how well it's going to come up on your monitor, but there's that one there of the guys on the mound. I don't know where you can see this, but anyway.
Yeah, we can see that there fairly well there.
And then you've got the Jose Marti monument behind. You've got the National Theatre over the corner there. So I was there just doing this, and then there you go. There's one of the catcher. So they just sat there, and I'd do a little painting of them, and we'd have a bit of a chat, and it was just very, very pleasant. And then one of the guys was, "Oh, we're going to the game tonight. Why don't you come and meet us?" And I ended up hanging out with him for a bit of the time I was in Havana. Went over to his house, met his mum, just hung out, played FIFA, MLB The Show, painted. I don't know. It was great. It was that, but that was like all of those things that you. I don't think you'd. I think as long as you're going, like you're saying before, like if you're going with you're just being open, friendly, aware of yourself, then I think the people were just so welcoming and so hospitable. I'll see if I must have that painting of his house somewhere down here. So I'm trying to capture, in terms of like I'm trying to capture everything about the place. Like I am trying to capture the baseball, but I'm also trying to capture all the stuff surrounding it. So again, this is one of his front room, and they're beautiful buildings there. There's some of the styles of the buildings and the assortment of colours and the richness of everything. And again, I'm just trying to capture the people, the way they live. This is again a guy that I was staying with in Camagüey, my host there. He was a musician, so he had these instruments on his wall and stuff like this. So I'm trying to capture everything to do with it. I've got that's Camagüey one of the plazas there as well. So it's really the baseball, but the surrounding culture, the people, the food, the cafes. As much as I can capture, I'm trying to get it all in.
No, and it looks like you're doing a fantastic job of capturing that. If anyone is interested in either getting a copy of the work or what, or I guess I should ask, what do you do with the?
Sorry, 1 minute, my door just blown up. Yeah. Sorry, the wind's just blown my door open. Sorry, that's my. Sorry.
No worries. What do you do with the works after they're completed?
Oh, I'd like to exhibit them. I mean, it's tricky at the moment because of the way the situation in the world is. Like I've got paintings from all over the world, baseball stadiums from all over the world. So I'd like to exhibit them in galleries. I did have a couple of pieces in the show in New York just before COVID. But I'd like to exhibit them, and I'd like to ultimately get them on people's walls. So if they go to my website, which is andybrownstadiums.com, that's got the works on there. Most of the works are available there. So yeah, I like to sell them, exhibit them, but ideally I want to share them with people. Like I want them to be out in the world and enjoyed by baseball fans and people who are interested in travel and culture.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And also, if it helps to fund that you can create more of that work, it's obviously a very important thing for independent artists to have that opportunity because, as I'm sure you know, it can be quite an expensive endeavor. So I'll put all of those links in the description, and everybody should head on over to that site and see if there is a piece there that you particularly like, and obviously keep watching along to see more pieces as well. So that's a very fascinating story. And like I said, the works of art speak for themselves. Kind of maybe delving back into a little bit more of where you've been to. You've done baseball in 9 different countries. What would you say is either your favorite country, favorite stadium, and or favorite experience, if you wanted to kind of hit on those 3 things?
God, dear, that's a real I mean, everybody always says, which is your favorite ballpark? And, I've painted it. I think I did the last count I did, I was getting close to 90 different ballparks. And I've painted some of them many, many times over. I can't choose my favorite one. It's an impossible answer. Like there's ones like the Koshien in Japan, for me, is always a very, very special one. There's something about that dark infield and the dirt infield there. And I was there for the high school tournament. The experiences I had there of the crowd playing, there's a big brass band playing Popeye the Sailor Man or Here Comes the Hot Stepper or whoever's that by him, all this sort of stuff. And you've just got like all these, school kids dancing in unison to that and playing it on trumpets and whatever else. There's something unbelievable about that. So the Koshien is one that's up there. My favorite countries, I mean, again, I love watching Japanese baseball. The Cuban and Mexican ballparks, without a doubt, are very, very special, I do think, but it's such a different atmosphere, it's almost like the way they play the game, but the way they respect the game and the interaction with everybody is so different from Japan to Cuba to Mexico. So I tend to find that it's very hard to say exactly like this is the best one, because it's just different. It's just different, but there's so much that you can learn from it. One of my best experiences or interesting experiences in Cuba was I was painting the Camagüey Stadium, Candido Gonzalez. And I was painting there just the outside, because I like to paint the exteriors as well, because although I want to capture the inside in the game, I want to capture the architecture and the surrounding area. So, for example, at Candido Gonzalez, and quite a lot of the Cuban ballparks, you've got those kind of grid-like, almost toothbrush-like floodlights or whatever. And they're very kind of geometrically built, quite kind of constructivist almost. And anyway, so I was painting this ballpark. It's got a sculpture, a bust of, I think it was Candido Gonzalez is there as well. So I had him in the painting. You have horses and carriages passing by people, taxiing people to and from their places of work or wherever they're coming, but school kids in them and all this sort of stuff. And then I was painting it, and then two kids come up to me, and there's one who must be somewhere between 8 and 10. The other one's a bit older, maybe a young teenager. And they're talking about the painting. They're very excited to see what I'm doing, and we're kind of having just general conversation, and they seem to like it. And then this guy pulls out a deck of cards, and then I was like, oh, okay. And then he holds the cards out to me. Okay, so I guess, I've got to take a card. So you take a card. He's doing a magic trick. So, okay, I get my card. I know what it is. Put it back in the pack. Like, this kid was the most unbelievable magician I've ever seen. And he must have been about 13 or 14 years old. And he ends up taking the card out of his mouth, and it's my card, and he's thrown all the rest of the cards away. And it was just incredible. Two other guys, two taxi drivers, I think, came out to see it. He does a completely different trick. And again, he's blowing away everybody around us. And I'm just like, this is incredible. Why? You can't imagine these things are happening in front of you. And I'm just there painting the ballpark. And it's these amazing experiences where you get to interact with people in a way that you probably wouldn't normally. And I think that's the kind of special, my work has given me the access to that. And that's not really, and that's kind of an offshoot of it. And it's really nice that you get to share those moments. And, sometimes, like I said, you might do a Polaroid or a quick drawing of a forum, or, you can just, it's just that nice exchange of stories or ideas or a magic trick or whatever it might be. But there's so many wonderful moments of like that. It's really hard to choose or say, right, this is the best one.
Well, maybe it's similar to Tom Brady when they asked him recently, what was your favorite Super Bowl ring? And he said the next one. So yeah.
It really is. It kind of is. It's exactly that.
Perfect. And speaking of such, and what's next on your hit list? Hopefully, if 2021 will permit it.
Yeah. There's a number of ideas. There's a number of things that I'd like to do. I really want to get back to Cuba and get to more ballparks there. The taste, I was there for about 3 or 4 weeks. That taste of Cuba as a place and of people and the baseball. I'd love to get back there and do more there. I'd like to get back to Mexico more, but it's really Latin America and going down into kind of South America. That would be the kind of trip that I'd really like to do next and explore that more. But equally, if there's, there's a Team GB are playing, I think, in the next little while in Spain and Portugal, I think it is, the British Knights. So there's all things like that. And again, it's just that thing of, that's a place that I've not seen baseball, and I'd really like to go and see baseball there. So if I can get there, I'll get there. It's just a matter of how to get there. Pakistan, that's another one. The Pakistani team, I've seen them on Facebook, and again, I'm I saw this ballpark that's up in the hills in Pakistan, and it just looks amazing. I'm just like, wow, that's awesome. I want to go and paint that. So we'll see. Who knows? I really don't know, but I'll just fingers crossed we can get moving again and the world gets back to a more normal existence.
Excellent. So any way that either I can help and hopefully Sunday maybe we can connect in Cuba. But again, Andy Brown Stadium.com, head there and check out his work and consider buying a piece, and all of that obviously helps to contribute to future trips and to keep artistry going. No, this has been fantastic, and like I said, hopefully Sunday we can meet in a little bit more formal settings. But it was great chatting with you today, and thanks for sharing your fantastic story.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Phil. Appreciate it.
As always, subscribe here on YouTube. Smash the like button like a hanging slider, or share this video.